Hello, I am the Dark Knight Apologist, and welcome back to Dark Knight Apologetics. Hello, I am your host Jeremy, and welcome to another video on my channel. Hello, I'm trying to increase the viewer retention of my videos. So if you could all just please watch this video all the way to the end, that would be nice. If you watch this video to the end, a word will appear up on the screen. And when you see that word, I would like you to type it in the comments section. Please watch this video to the end. Okay? Okay, let's start off with talking about how I don't like young earth creationism. Yeah, it it just really is not a good representation of how mainstream Christianity works. Young earth creationism, it just doesn't work that way. I personally believe that God creates using processes, and yeah. In this video, we're going to be talking about the process of evolution. And yeah. So, God creates using processes. And let's talk about the 6 days of creation and the word yom. This 6 days of creation they do not necessarily have to be 24-hour days. I obviously don't believe that they are. I believe that they are long, finite periods of time. They are eras. They are 6 creation eras. Long, finite periods of time. And yes, there is biblical reasoning for why I believe that. So, yeah. God creates using processes, with evolution being one of those processes. Now, I do believe that evolution is a shoddy process and does require a lot of supernatural interference from God, because it doesn't work by itself. It's not one of those type of processes that he could have just sat back and done nothing. He had to interfere with it to get the results he wanted to get. Yeah. So let's look at my biblical reasoning for why I believe what I believe. Psalm 90 verse 4. For you 1,000 years are as yesterday. They are like a few hours. So yeah, this is basically where the teaching of God being timeless comes from. He lies outside of time. And there's also something similar to it in the New Testament as well. 2 Peter 3 verse 8. But you must not forget, dear friends, that a day is like 1,000 years to the Lord, and 1,000 years like a day. So yeah, to God, time doesn't matter. He basically just takes however long he wants to take, whether that be an instant or billions of years. Time really doesn't matter to God. Time is meaningless. Time is meaningless to him. So yeah. And I just think that the days of creation, they're eras. They're not 24 hours. They're eras. They're long, finite periods of time. So yeah, you have that shoddy process of evolution where God has to interfere with it several different times, from supernatural interference. Speaking of that, one big evidence of the supernatural interference on evolution would have to be the Cambrian explosion. The Cambrian explosion, great evidence for supernatural interference from God. So yeah. So yeah, we've established that God is timeless and time has no meaning to him. So yeah, God creates using processes. I accept Big Bang Theory. I accept evolution for the most part, and yeah, I honestly think that Christians need to stop uh, trying this. We need to stop this anti-science stuff. Anti-science is really the thing that is hurting the church right now. We need to stop this anti-science stuff. It's hurting the church. So yeah. Um. So yeah. Let's look at Genesis 1. We're not going to read all of Genesis 1. We're just going to paraphrase it and skim through. Genesis 1 is where the days of creation is. Um, so yeah, you would have the several billion years gap between verses 2 and 3. So yeah. So yeah. That's usually where I place the gap between verses 2 and 3, because every other entry starts with "and then God said." Eh, all the days they start with "and then God said" and end with "and there was morning and there was evening, uh, the first the X day." So yeah, they all start with "and then God said" and then they end with "and that was that day." So yeah, there's a pattern there. And that pattern is there because it's a poetic thing. It, it's for the poetic setup. So yeah. Like I like to call Genesis 1 allegorical history, because I do believe that the events recorded in Genesis 1 did really happen, just not necessarily in the literal sense that they are recorded. And then you have Genesis 2, which is not a contradiction of Genesis 1, but actually a retelling of day 6 of creation. So yeah, it's not a contradiction. It's a retelling of day 6. Genesis 2 is a retelling of day 6. So yeah. So I think we've established that there is a gap, a billion years gap between several billion years, not just a billion years, several billion years gap between verses 2 and 3 of Genesis 1. So yeah. And you got God creating with processes, one of those processes, of course, being evolution, where he has to interfere in it several times. Speaking on that, another good evidence of supernatural interference from God is the, creation of humans, because he had to put the image of God on humans. So yeah, that's supernatural interference right there. So yeah, the creation of humans is supernatural interference. Um, First life was supernatural interference because, yeah, God had to create first life, so that's supernatural interference. The Cambrian explosion was supernatural interference. Then you got the evolution of modern birds. That was supernatural interference. The uh, the creation of humans with the image of God, that was supernatural interference. So yeah, the supernatural interference is definitely there. It's as I like to say, God guided evolution to get to the results that we have today. So yeah, yeah. I think I'll cut this segment and then we'll start talking again. An unfortunate topic that does come up a lot when talking about the Earth being billions of years old and debunking young Earth creationism is death before the fall of man. Now, the fall can be located in Genesis chapter 3, which we are not going to read, but you can read it if you want to. The fall is a interesting story, but it's the first sin. It's where original sin comes from. And what is happening here is you have young Earth creationists overly anthropomorphizing animals. And what they're doing is they're not taking into account that these animals that they are overly anthropomorphizing were made differently than humans. These animals are what you would call nephesh. They were created to have emotions and have an emotional bond with humans, but they were not created as human. No, the humans were created as humans. The young Earth creationists are anthropomorphizing these animals. And you really shouldn't be anthropomorphizing them. That's for fiction, not for theology. And, yeah. So, the young Earth creationists, they're anthropomorphizing the animals. I don't have a problem with death before the fall of man because animal death is different than human death. Nephesh animals are not spiritual beings. Humans have a spiritual component to them. So nephesh animals are the animals like your pets, your farm animals, your domesticated animals, that kind of stuff. Now, things that would not be nefesh are plants, insects, fish. That's not to say that there isn't Silef that is nefesh, because there is. Dolphins are nefesh. Basically, any animal that can create an emotional bond with humans is nefesh. Nefesh is a Hebrew word, in case you're wondering. It's a Hebrew word that I learned through my studies of biblical Hebrew. Okay? It's basically a spiritual thing. It's kind of hard to explain the meaning of it because there isn't an exact translation to English. So, yeah. So I do believe that God kicked off life on Earth. He created the first life, and then guided the evolution of that life into humans. Supernaturally interfered with the evolutionary process to get things like humans and modern birds and that. In case you're wondering, I believe that the supernatural interference ended near the creation of humans, which was about 200,000 years ago. So, yeah. You got all of that occurring. And through my studies in Romans, I've learned that human death and animal death are categorized differently in the Bible. They're not categorized with the same treatment. Human death is considered different from animal death. The young earth creationists are overly anthropomorphizing animals. They're treating animals like you would treat another human being. That's okay to a degree, but not to a theology, if that makes sense. It makes sense when you think about it. I'm not saying anything that you should take wrong, but yeah. Just stop anthropomorphizing your pets. Treat them kindly and treat your pets with love and care, but don't anthropomorphize them. Okay? I hope that makes sense. I believe that humans have spiritual parts, soul parts, and also a nefesh part. We're a spiritual being, and we have a soul. The soul is where you have the image of God, and all humans have it, even non-believers. So yeah. All humans have the image of God on them, even non-believers. And this is partly why I treat all humans with respect, because all humans have the image of God. And you have the spirit, the soul, and yes, I do believe that there is a measurable part of the soul that could be measured, but our current technology is not advanced enough to do that. We haven't discovered the measurable part of the soul yet. Maybe one day we will, but that's just a prediction. Hopefully I'm right about it. So yeah, those are the divisions of the human. So yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, yes, I do accept Big Bang Theory, and I'll probably be talking more about Big Bang Theory in a later episode. So yeah, expect that. So yeah. There are some science faith ministries that I do admire and are actually really good at the science. You have Reasons to Believe with Dr. Hugh Ross, and you have Biologos, who has the current representative of Deborah Harzma, and you have Cross-Examined with Frank Turek. These ministries, they're really good at the science. Now, granted, Frank Turek is not a scientist, but he has been advised by people that are really good at the science, that are scientists. He takes the advice of people that are good at the science. He has worked with Reasons to Believe and Dr. Hugh Ross. These are the type of science faith ministries I follow. They will be linked in the description because yeah, I admire these ministries. They're actually helping the gospel message look better and make it look like Christians actually can understand the science and that there doesn't have to be a conflict between faith and science, because there doesn't. Biologos, Reasons to Believe, Cross-Examined, these are good ministries, and I admire them. So they will be linked in the description, because I did get some of my information from them. Okay? But yeah, most of this information I was getting from memory. So yeah. I wish that the young earth creationists and the flat earthers would stop this anti-science stuff and realize that this anti-science stuff is hurting the church. It's making Christianity look bad. So please stop this anti-science stuff. This anti-intellectualism is not helping. It's not helping spread the gospel. It's hurting the gospel message. Please stop this anti-science stuff. It's hurting the gospel message. It isn't helping. Please stop it. It just isn't helping. Okay? Please stop this anti-science stuff. I plead with you to stop this anti-science stuff. Okay? Please stop it. Okay, now the word will pop up on the screen. If you have made it to this point in the video, then you will see this word pop up on the screen. Please type this word in the comment section. Goodbye. This is the Dark Knight Apologist, and I just wanted to say, see you next time.